Why do you think so simple language English proficiency test becomes stressful for a student?
One of the main reasons for that is not giving enough time for preparation.
Can you name me a few top league universities which accept language cert exams?
We are accepted worldwide. The Russell Group accepts us.
So if somebody doesn't want to write XYZ exam, there's always this exam which is widely accepted, comparatively cheaper, and most importantly, it is more student friendly.
The recognition that we got from BOHA Australia, so that speaks a lot. There are certain tests which are still not accepted by Australia.
While I was setting up TestNest, long journey that I had to go through. From documentation, there should be a washroom which is going to physically be table ready. The locker facility has to be there. Cameras are all over the place. Do you think this is really important?
We put the candidates on top of the pyramid. Security, integrity, and compliance, pillars of the test.
When we have students who are really scared about writing the exams, and I would just say that you're going into a country where the education is going to be in English. You're going to do job there.
Correct.
You have to complete the masters to get the post-study work permit. So if you're getting scared by an English proficiency exam, why do you think you can clear a masters?
That's very true.
Let's understand future of English exams for India.
Barring the circumstances, war and all that, if you look at the number of students going abroad year on year, the trend is only growing.
When we were deciding to open a center which is 100 meters from the metro station or maybe even bus station, does such kind of connectivity gives ease to parents?
Of course, yes, it does. On a test day, it should not add stress reaching out to the test center. And your test center, TestNest, is located right in the heart of the city, in Panjagutta, so wherein everyone can reach out. All modes of transport are available. It's a beautiful facility, a state-of-the-art test center that you've built. Parents and candidates would like the test center when they look at it.
If you were to have this conversation 1 year from now, how different do you see South India accepting language cert?
Idea is to have a test center very near to the candidate, to have a test center in every city and every town so that the candidate, they don't have to travel longer distances to take a test. So that's our goal. I'm sure we've come a long way.
Let's take this forward from a wider perception to the main pain point of every student: exams. Most students think an English exam is just about getting a score. But the truth is, the exam you choose, the way you prepare, and the mistakes you avoid directly impact your admissions journey, visa confidence, timelines, and even your money. So this podcast is not just for students. It's also for education consultancies to guide the students the right test. It's also for parents who are confused which test is best for the kid. In this podcast, we sat down with South India Head of Language Cert, Mr. Anil Peruka, to decode what students are never told. Exam slots, common preparation mistakes, UKVI test clarity, why many students get panic right before the exam, and how language cert is changing the student approach throughout the English proficiency world. So before you book your next English exam, watch this conversation till the end, because one right decision here can make your students or your entire study abroad journey hassle-free. So stay tuned. To help us understand the bigger picture, we have someone with us who has understood the market very closely and with more than 2 decades of experience. Here we have Mr. Anil Peruka, Head of South Language Cert India. Anil, welcome. It is a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much, Arun, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here as well. And also congratulations to you and TestNest for becoming an official language cert test center.
Wonderful to have you here. And this is going to be a conversation which a lot of students, parents, consultancies, even coaching institutes would definitely watch and learn a lot of new things. Let me begin with a broader question. So a lot of students, while deciding to choose a test, they don't see the test as a stepping stone to their dream university or the career goal. They see it in a very stressful way. Why do you think so simple language English proficiency test becomes stressful for a student?
Very true, Arun. I mean, a lot of students actually feel stressed, when it comes to an English proficiency test. And I think one of the main reasons for that is basically not giving enough time for preparation. They know that, okay, they're applying for a study abroad, journey, or they're applying to a university. Of course, there is an English language proficiency test required. So what they do is they actually don't give enough time for preparation. They don't give the due interest to the English language test. So once they finalize the university, once they're through with the process, that's when they kind of give, that they have to take the English language test at that point of time. And that's when it becomes stressful, because there's lack of time to prepare and there is stress of getting that required band score to meet the requirement of the university's English language proficiency. But I would advise, all the students, all the candidates trying to study abroad or aspiring to study abroad, I think they need to kind of, once they finalize the university, they need to identify the English language test that they have to take and start preparing, because the earlier they prepare, they have that much of time, they kind of get the required band score, that's good. If they don't get it, at least they have time to take a second attempt of the test and get the required band score for their application.
Is this stress mainly because of the awareness, or is it because of not understanding the format or what really the test has in it?
I think it's all put together, because until unless they kind of give time and attention to the test, they would not understand the format of the test. They would not understand how the test functions, and what are the examiners looking for. How much time does it take for them to prepare? So again, as I mentioned, they have to give that due time for preparation, to understand the test format, understand which test is better for them. That will help them prepare for the test better, and then eventually perform better in the test.
Does the entire journey of study abroad makes this test part very stressful? Because it goes with that. Whenever somebody asks that, I have a friend who went abroad and they ask which was the toughest part, and that friend might tell that the test was the toughest part. So do you think that ideology is continuing, and that is one of the reason why stress is happening to students?
Well, again, this again, boils down to the same point of not giving enough time. The candidate, whoever's advised that the test is the most stressful point, probably may not have given enough time, for the English language test. So the only thing that the candidates need to do, as I said, is, they just have to ensure that they identify the right test for them, spend some time on the test, identify the test center, and then prepare well for the test and try to give the test. Obviously, once they prepare well, they'll have, better confidence, and eventually it'll transpire in their performance as well.
For someone who is hearing language study for the first time, how do you put it forward?
Well, see, LanguageCert is essentially, an English language proficiency test. Just like any other English language test, we have other English language tests in the market as well. It fundamentally tests 4 components, that is listening, reading, writing, and speaking, just like any other English language test. But what makes it unique, what makes it stand out from the rest of the tests, is there are certain features in this test which are really unique and helpful for the candidate to perform better. For example, the listening audio in this particular test is repeated. None of the other English language tests actually do that. So there are features like that. For that matter, the speaking test as well is basically taken on a computer. It's like a video call speaking. However, the examiner is not visible to the candidate. The examiner can see the candidate, but candidate cannot see the examiner. So we've deliberately designed the test in such a way because it makes the candidate less nervous. So all they have to do is just focus on the questions on the screen. So there are questions displayed on the screen when they take the speaking test. So their focus is only on the questions, rather than the body language of the examiner who's taking the exam. So that makes it less stressful for the candidate,
Right.
and they're more focused on the questions, and they're able to perform better in the speaking test. So personally, one of the best, components in this test is the speaking test. I personally like the speaking test, the best.
Which all countries accept language cert exam?
Very good question. To put it simple, we are accepted worldwide, except Germany and Canada. So our major acceptance is in the UK, wherein 80 to 85% of the universities accept our language cert academic test or the CELT examinations for various purposes, like for study, immigration, and work purposes. We're also accepted in the Ireland, the New Zealand, the Poland, and recently we got Australia recognition as well for all types of visas, which includes study, work, and immigration. So language cert academic test is getting popular. It's getting accepted in more and more countries. And we're also accepted in the US, a slightly limited recognition in the US, but we are building on the recognition in the US. So by end of this year, or maybe by mid of next year, we are expected to see a lot of universities added to our recognition list. And apart from that, we're also accepted in a lot of countries in the Europe as well.
Okay. So there are 2 variations of the test basically, one being the academic side and one being the general side. How do you see language cert helping candidates who are planning for their migration journey, like applying for a PR or an IELTS?
Yeah. Well, we also have the general version of the test. But when it comes to Australia, DOH said that they will accept language cert academic for both purposes, that is for study as well as for immigration. So candidates aspiring to migrate or work in Australia can also take language cert academic, the same test what students take. However, when it comes to UK, we have we are also a UKVI Home Office approved test. So we also provide the UKVI test as well, which is called the CELT, which is the Secured English Language Test. So there are 2 versions of it. One is the academic, which is basically for admission purposes, and the general training is for immigration purposes. So that is taken by people trying to migrate or work abroad in the UK. And we also have the 2-skill test as well, which is basically only for listening and reading, which is predominantly for dependents or special visas. So they are the ones who actually take the 2 skills test. So we also provide that particular test as well. So we have
Okay.
we have tests, kind of catered to students as well as for immigration candidates as well.
Can you name me a few top league universities which accept language cert exams?
Well, we are accepted in UK. The Russell Group accepts us.
Mhm.
In fact, all the universities where the students from India do apply, most of them are accepting language cert examinations. And in fact, in Australia as well, 6 out of the G8 universities do accept us, and we're expecting the remaining, university in Australia to get the acceptance in the next 1 or 2 months.
Most of the tests in this segment cost somewhere around 19,000. How much does language cert exam cost?
Yeah, that's again another unique feature of this test. We are slightly economical compared to other tests. So we are our test is like 16,430 rupees if somebody books it online. However, I know that TestNest is offering a discount to the candidates. So if anybody is willing to kind of take a test, take training classes or get prepared for the test and then take a test at TestNest, they can avail the discount and they can approach the TestNest team for that. And as I said, it's slightly economical compared to the other tests which are priced at 19,000, close to 19,000.
That's a big difference, I guess.
Yes, it is.
From your experience in South India, what is the biggest misconception that students or parents or consultancies or coaching institutes have about language cert exam?
Well, I think the biggest misconception, or I would rather put it as lack of awareness, is basically the recognition of the test, that we are accepted worldwide except Germany and Canada. And just to kind of bring that into context, we have already applied with IRCC. So that application is in process. So once we get that, we will be accepted in Canada as well. And parallelly, we are also, applying. We've already applied with Germany as well, so that's also work in progress. So apart from that, we are accepted in, all rest of the countries, and the universities also started accepting our examination. So I think a lot of candidates and a lot of institutions and a lot of parents are not aware of this, which is what we are trying to do. What we are trying to do is we are trying to educate, or in fact make familiar all the education consultants, study abroad consultants, training institutions, and student communities as well, like the third years and final years in the college. So we are trying to make them aware that they have another option of an English proficiency test, which is language cert, and that is accepted worldwide. And the test itself being simpler, and it actually brings out the best from the candidate. So it's a better option for them when it comes to a English language test. So we're trying to do a lot of things, including digital marketing, including social media marketing, a lot of marketing activities when it comes to train the trainer programs, and partner events as well, to spread awareness about the test.
So I guess the biggest misconception is the lack of awareness about where all the test is accepted. That is a myth that has to be changed in mainly consultancies.
True, that's correct.
Because they are the one who's going to suggest a student that this is the exam that you need to write. This is the exam that is accepted everywhere.
That's true. I mean, they should be aware that this test is accepted worldwide, and we have test centers all across the region, and we have test prep centers available. So I think that is something that is lacking. We're trying to spread that awareness, and I'm sure eventually candidates will get to know, and more and more consultants and partners would also advise the candidates to take the language cert academic test as well.
So that's a good start. Now
Yes.
let's take this forward from a wider perception to the main pain point of every student.
Yeah.
Exams and the student perspective of the exams. When a student is confused between multiple English language exams, how do you see language cert, or how can a student determine that language cert exam is comparatively better to the other text that is available in the market?
I've seen other English language tests very closely as well, and I know my experience, and in fact, I've taken the test myself. So what makes this test unique is, as I said in the beginning, there are certain features which we can call as USPs, certain features which make this test really unique. One of the features is, to start with, the listening audio is repeated in this test. Unlike other English language tests, wherein the listening audio is a lengthy audio for 30 minutes, you have to listen to the audio and then simultaneously write the answers. Over here, it's all short conversations, like 2 to 3 sentences. It's a short conversation, and every conversation is repeated. So that gives, the candidate a second chance. And what happens is, even if they miss out, because of the accent or due to an external disturbance, there is a second chance for them to listen to the audio and then write the answer. Somebody who's already given the answer, they can kind of confirm whether they've given the right answer or not. So that's one of the major advantages with the listening test. And another feature that I really like about this test is the speaking test, wherein the speaking test is always a video call test or video call speaking with a live interlocutor or an examiner. But the examiner is not visible to the candidate. Though the examiner can see the examiner is not visible to the candidate. Candidate can only see the questions on the screen. And as I mentioned earlier, we've deliberately made it, in such a manner so that the candidates focus only on the questions and they are less nervous, more confident, and able to perform better in the speaking test. And also one main feature in the speaking test is also there is something called as a role play. Just like any other speaking test, there is an introduction and then there is a role play. Role play is something which is unique in this test. It's not available in the other tests, which I'm sure you would appreciate it because it kind of puts the candidate at ease. It's an option where basically the examiner creates a situation and then, they actually do a role play in that. So, for example, when I took the test, when I joined LanguageCert, I also took the test to understand the test better. So when I took the test, the interlocutor or the examiner asked me, let's imagine a situation where we both are students studying in the same university, and we talk about the facilities of the university. And then he said that he will start, and he talked about the library. He said they have a good collection of books in the library, which will cater to their academic needs as well as general learning as well. And then as a candidate, I was supposed to respond to it. So which is very good, which kind of makes you speak. You don't have to kind of come academically prepared for this test. And I'm sure you've also taken your LanguageCert academic test.
I did, and even I was very comfortable when the questions came in this way, where it was a very comfortable discussion. The role play part, it was, for me, the question was, how would we want to spend the evening, and what food that we are cooking, and the movie that we'll be watching. So it's a very general discussion.
Absolutely.
So I think the exam is trying to test if you can actually speak in the real world,
Natural environment.
in the natural environment. The situation is given like that.
Rather than, giving an academically challenging question.
Correct. Absolutely. I agree.
So what that does is it kind of puts the candidate at comfort, and then, and that way their confidence levels increases and they are able to perform better. And apart from these two features, there are other features like the exam can be booked in 48 hours. They can make a booking. At times there are, bookings done even 24 hours before the actual test.
Right.
And they get the results in 5 working days from the, the time they finish all the 4 modules. And speaking can be taken on the same day as well or any other day, based on, that's again a candidate's choice.
Right.
We don't decide, when the candidate has to take the speaking test. So the candidate can decide whether he wants to take it on the same day, or he's got a window, he or she has got a window of 14 days before or after the LRW test that they can actually choose their speaking test.
I was really shocked when I saw that there was a booking which came in for the next day.
Yeah.
I thought, is it possible that a candidate can book a test for tomorrow itself?
Yeah.
Because in other tests, you need to have a heads up of a week or something at least.
That's true.
Because of the availability of the slots itself.
That's absolutely true. So availability is not a problem for us. We have multiple centers, we have multiple slots available. So students will not face a problem with the slot availability. So that's one. And as I said, they get the results in 5 working days. They get a physical scorecard sent out courier to them. And they will also have a soft copy of the result uploaded in their LanguageCert account. And apart from that, they also have an option of reporting scores. They can do unlimited score reporting absolutely for free.
Whoa, that's great.
Yeah. So other tests, they charge after a limit of maybe 4 or 5 universities. But here, you can report to N number of universities, unlimited number of universities, absolutely for free.
So how do students actually prepare for the test? I'm talking about those students who are not going to a coaching institute.
Yes.
Who already have a better English and they want to, do a self-paced learning. How do they prepare?
Somebody who needs to understand the format of the test.
Right.
So we have official practice papers for that. We have 4 official practice papers available on the website, absolutely for free. A candidate doesn't even have to log into the account to access these. Apart from this, we also have a mock test, which is not scored. Of course, it's a computer-based demo test. And they also have an answer key to that. So they can actually verify the answers, whether they've given the right answers or not. And we also have a scored mock test. So wherein they get to see the answers, they get to see the score that they're getting. Of course, this is for listening, reading, and writing, not for speaking. So based on that, the candidate can assess themselves, and they can actually take time and prepare on the components that they're not scoring well. So that feature is there. Apart from this, we also have a beautiful learning management system. There's a module which is created and put on the website.
Interesting.
For free access. Anyone can access it. However, they have to register on the LanguageCert account on the website, and then create an account, and then they will be able to access the learning management system. So what we've done here is we've actually given a comprehensive question bank here. So for each question type, we have 8 questions given, so that it gives that kind of a learning to the candidate, and it's a progressive journey. Like they can actually, let's say if they finished like half an hour of learning, or maybe they've done half an hour of reading, and tomorrow they come back and they can start from where they left. So it's a progressive journey, and the entire LMS shows their progression and the progress that they're making with the learning. So that's a beautiful feature. I think candidates would love it. And apart from this, anybody is looking for any test prep support in terms of training for LanguageCert Academic, I'm sure TestNest is also offering the best of supports in terms of training the candidates, helping them prepare for the test, and also taking a mock test in the actual real test lab. So that's a big deal.
That's a USP.
Yeah, that's a big deal, because when candidates come and take the test or take the mock test in the test lab, they're actually experiencing the actual test environment. So they know how it feels when you actually come and take a test.
Yeah. So we are actually addressing sorry to cut you, but we're actually addressing the first question that I asked, the stress, the stress factor.
Absolutely.
So what we are addressing is, before you write the actual test, once you are in an environment where there's cameras over you, you have to be disciplined. You have to sit at one place. You cannot go out for 2 to 3 hours.
True.
So there's an environment that is the most stressful thing. So once a candidate is learning and practicing in the same place, it is going to be a non-stressful thing, while the confidence is going to be more
100%.
when doing for the
test. You're giving them a taste of the actual test.
Right.
So you're making them familiar, with the testing environment. So that builds their confidence. When they go for the actual test, they will be able to perform better.
What kind of profile do you think LanguageCert best suits for? Do you think students who want more flexibility, or is it for students who want much simpler or relevant option which is on par with other tests, or is it for students who want it more stress-free?
Well, I think all of them, would be the reasons, I would say, that someone should choose LanguageCert examination, because right from the unique, features that I've mentioned, like the listening audio being played twice, the speaking always being on a video call, booking the test like 24 to 48 hours before the test, getting the results in 5 days, unlimited score reporting, and on top of all this, the test itself is actually simpler. It's not academically challenging, so it's very relevant to what an English language test should be, and it's as I said, it's quite simpler, so that makes it makes the candidates feel it is easier for them to score, and they're able to perform better just because the format is simpler.
Mm-hmm. So moving to the next question, one of the biggest fears students have while deciding to write the test or when they're preparing is, what if I miss with a small margin? What if my score is little down? And will that stop my admissions? Will that stop me from getting a visa? So how does a test structure a practice, or how the test is designed in a way that a student is not losing out marks for one small mistake? Are those really important? How this test is structured and how they are evaluated?
To answer that, Arun, yes, it is, because it's an English language test. So obviously, there's certain criteria that the examiners are looking for, and the evaluation is done, based on that criteria. But I would rather say, I think one of the main things that the candidate needs, or the candidates need to focus on, is giving enough time to prepare for the test. Because as I mentioned earlier, when they give enough time to understand the format of the test, probably to give a mock test, to understand how the test runs, that's when a lot of candidates do have good English, but when they don't understand the format of the test, they don't get the required band scores. And as rightly said by you, if they don't get the required band score, it is definitely going to affect their admission, or the application or the admission. So it's better they kind of give enough time and prepare well, probably come and take a mock test, and I'm sure TestNest is supporting candidates in helping prepare for the mock test. So they can come, take a mock test, understand where they're standing, prepare better on the components, that they were not able to score in the mock test. That gives them enough time, that builds their confidence, and eventually they will be able to score better. And even if they have not, if they prepare well, if prepare in advance and give the test in advance rather than giving it on, in the 11th hour, that gives them more time. Even if they don't get the score, there's time for a second chance. They can go for the test again, get a better score, and get the required band scores or the required English language proficiency scores for the admission purpose.
Is confidence more important or preparation?
I would say both, but I think with preparation comes confidence. Because if you're better
Like you
prepared,
said.
obviously you'll have more confidence, and it
Absolutely.
obviously transpires in their result.
Well said. How much does the right test environment really matter? So, while I was setting up TestNest, and when we planned and we associated to open the test center for LanguageCert, there was a long journey that I had to go through, from documentation to fulfilling requirements like it should be physically able people ready. There should be a washroom which is going to be physically able ready. The locker facility has to be there. Cameras are all over the place. There's a lot of individual checks that we have to do with the receptionist, to the invigilator, to the security. There's a lot of documentation that was involved, and this journey took more than 6 to 7 months just to get the accreditation. So we personally know how difficult it is to get the rights for a high-stake test center. Do you think this is really important?
I think it is very important, Arun, because see, we give the prime importance. We put the candidates on the top of the pyramid. So we've kind of ensured that everything kind of works for the candidate. Okay, right from the environment of the test center, the test itself, the research and development which was done for the test itself is also done, keeping the students and of course the universities, requiring that particular scores and all that on the top of the pyramid. So, and we also take security very seriously. Security, integrity, and compliance. These are all the pillars of the test, of any test for that matter.
Right.
And that is why any test is kind of, accepted and recognized by universities and governments alike.
Right.
Okay, so that's why we ensure we are very choosy about choosing the right partner when it comes to a test center. We do all the due diligence, we do the market intelligence and all that, and we ensure that we give the test center to the right partners, and we also ensure that all the aspects of the test center are met. So we don't leave any stone unturned to ensure the test is secured and compliant. At the same time, it's convenient for the candidates to come and take the test, including the specially abled candidates.
Right. So next question is interesting. For a student who is average in English but very determined to go abroad, what would your suggestions be? And I have a few follow-up questions on this. What should they stop overthinking? What should they prepare for more realistically? And what mistakes do students make at this stage? First thing being, should they stop overthinking?
Very interesting question, Arun. I think thank you for asking this because it is I think this is a question a lot of people would want to ask, and it relates to a lot of candidates as well. See, one of the main things is, as I mentioned earlier, candidates do not give due importance to an English language proficiency test, which is where they kind of I think that's the first wrong step that they have that they take, wherein they don't give enough time to prepare and then eventually don't get the required band score or required score of English language proficiency. I think one of the other mistakes that most of the candidates do is they look for shortcuts. They want quick wins.
Right.
That wouldn't work, especially when it comes to a language. It wouldn't work. A particular candidate may have an average English, but still aspire, to study abroad or go to an English-speaking country, which is absolutely great. It's just that they have to do their homework. They have to work on the skills, the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Overall, they have to work on the language because they're going to a native English-speaking country, so they would be conversing in English with their peers, with their fellow students, with their professors, or in their general daily life as well. So it's very important that they have a level of English. So they need to work on that. So the more they practice, okay, they have to do a lot of practice in terms of language, not only kind of sticking to the test format. Okay, so they have to look at a lot of general material as well. Maybe listen to a lot of audios, a lot of English music, listen to a lot of documentaries, watch a lot of documentaries. They can do that. They have to do a lot of reading as well, read variety of material, read a lot of books, a lot of articles, which kind of improves their comprehension, which improves their vocabulary and overall the language. And they have to start practicing a little bit of writing as well, because obviously there is a writing component, and obviously they have to write when they go and take their classes to excel in their academics. They have to write, so there's a lot of writing to do, so they have to practice that as well. And obviously speaking, has to be used because that's what they do in a daily life. So there's no shortcut to this, to success in terms of language proficiency, or for that matter, learning a language. It's a journey which somebody has to embrace. A candidate has to embrace it, and they have to start practicing all the four components right from when they start dreaming about studying abroad. So right from the initial stage, they have to start doing this.
Right. So when we have students who are really scared about writing the exams, or they're really scared about how can I pass this English proficiency exam, when I am there, every student, I would just say that you're going to a country
Yes.
where the education is going to be in English. You're going to do job there.
Correct.
You're aiming to get a job there. You have to complete the masters to get the post-study work permit. So if you're getting scared by an English proficiency exam, why do you think you can clear a master's?
That's true. That's very true. And again, they need to understand that it's an English-speaking country. So obviously, you have to speak English. You have to know the language. So you better prepare for the language. You better learn the language well in advance. If you have that kind of a dream, if you want to go abroad for either for work or for immigration or for study, so they have to start early.
So when a student is looking forward to write a test, what is one big mistake that usually students do? Is it booking a test that is cheaper, or not identifying where all it is accepted, or just writing it because it is accepted, or if some friend would have suggested that this is an easier test and you write it and only apply to those places where that test is just accepted?
Right. I think you answered the question. I think they listen to their friends a lot these days. But one of the main important things that they need to look at is the recognition first. First, once they zero down on the university, or once they have the shortlisted list of universities that they're applying, they need to look at which language test is kind of accepted in all these universities. And that's when they start preparing for that test. And they can approach, if they need any training, official training for that, or any support in terms of training for that, they can approach any training institutions, or they can approach TestNest, which can help them prepare for the test, and then eventually help them with a mock test as well, and then book a LanguageCert academic test as well. And now the next question would be choosing the right test. So obviously they'll have to kind of weigh all these options and look at which test is kind of helping them score better, and perform better.
And there are options within the test as well. Like students sometimes write a home-based exam,
Yes.
thinking that I have got this XYZ exam written, but it's an home-based exam. It's not accepted by immigration.
Well, see, home-based examinations are not accepted by most of the universities,
Immigration is
most of
not,
the
yeah.
countries. See, home-based examinations came or became popular because of the COVID, that came in. So at that point of time, people were not able to go to the test centers and and test centers were not functional as well. So that's when the home-based tests were accepted. But a lot of universities have actually stopped. A lot of countries have actually stopped accepting the home-based tests since then. And even if they are, there are additional security features which are being introduced. I would rather suggest them to weigh all the features, as I said, look at the features. And as I mentioned, LanguageCert offers them a lot of unique features which kind of help them perform better. Like, the listening test being simpler and audio being repeated, speaking where the examiner is not visible, but they can, kind of answer the questions based on the, whatever questions are shown on the screen. And then it's a very friendly examiner who's taking the exam. So there are certain features, as I mentioned, which kind of help them perform better. So looking at all these options, I think they should choose LanguageCert as, if the university is accepting, I think LanguageCert is the best option for them to, to go ahead and take a test and apply for their study abroad admission route.
Great. So a lot of parents are also watching this, and a lot of parents want to know. And when this perspective is brought to you, that for a parent, what is more important when the kid is deciding to write an exam? Is it gonna be the test center ecosystem, or is it gonna be the convenience of booking the test? Is it gonna be the cost? Is it gonna be the structure of the exam? Is it gonna be the acceptance? For a parent, usually what is more important?
I think all of them are important, Arun.
How do you rank it?
But predominantly, I would say recognition is the first one, because acceptance, because until unless a university accepts, they can't choose a particular test. So I think for me, what I would suggest is recognition is the topmost important thing. And then comes the availability of the test center. They don't have to see, these days we have test centers everywhere. They don't have to travel cities and to go and take a test. So they can choose a test center which is near to them. And then obviously, if they need any training, they can look at a center which can provide them training facilities as well, and train them on the test and all that. And then, probably fee is there. Fee is there, LanguageCert is an economical test compared to the other English language tests. So that I would say, would be the last feature to consider though. But I would say predominantly recognition is the first thing.
What do parents usually miss while selecting their kids' exam?
I think again it's lack of awareness that there is this option of LanguageCert academic test as well, which kind of helps them go through that journey easier and simpler. Once they know that, I think they will kind of weigh the options and they will help or help their kids or help their children take the right test. And with all the support that LanguageCert is offering in terms of resources, in terms of having test centers in all the regions, in all the cities, in all the major cities and major towns, it makes it even more easier for the candidates to come and take a test, in the nearest city. And also, a lot of resources are provided for free on the website. They don't have to go buy something on YouTube or go buy a book to study and prepare for the test. So everything is provided. And on top of that, if somebody in Hyderabad is looking to take a test, TestNest is offering them, free prep material along with training on the LanguageCert academic test. And then not only that, they're also offering a mock test wherein the candidates can sit and take the test in the actual testing environment, and eventually helping them in booking the test as well.
So you're discussing about the convenience that parents look at. And when we were deciding to open a center, we were very focused about getting into city center, which has a metro connectivity, which is 100 meters from the metro station or maybe even bus station. Does such kind of connectivity gives ease to parents?
Of course, yes, it does, because it actually puts them, at ease, that the kids or the children, or whoever is trying to take the test, they don't have to travel longer distances and, trying to go to remote places to take a test. So obviously, the convenience in terms of location of the test center is very important for parents as well as candidates as well. So ease of reaching out to the test centers is also an important factor. And that's, obviously, on a test day, it should not add stress, reaching out to the test center. So it should easily be commutable. That's also something that a lot of parents and candidates, look out for. And your test center, TestNest, is located right in the heart of the city in Panjagutta. So wherein everyone can reach out, all modes of transport are available. And so it's a beautiful facility, a state-of-the-art test center that you've built. And I'm sure parents and candidates would like, the test center when they look at it. And it'll help them, perform better and, in a convenient atmosphere. And it'll help them overall, it'll help them in their study abroad journey.
So we already have got the accreditation for doing high-stake test center here. And now we have also applied and we are in this process of getting the UKVI accreditation. So can you please explain what is the main difference between a UKVI SELT based exam and a non UKVI based exam?
That's a good question, Arun, because there's a lot of confusion around these,
Right.
UKVI tests. A lot of candidates as well as partners do not understand this. See, when it comes to UKVI is basically, it's a SELT examination, secured English language test. So the UK Home Office says, if somebody has to take an English language test, it has to be a secured test. So it is basically similar to the LanguageCert academic test, but it is taken in designated test centers which have more and which have enhanced security, and they call them as SELT test centers, and that's why they also call them as UKVI tests.
Right.
And they get a unique UKVI number as well on the the score report form. That's how they're kind of segregated as a UKVI test. So this specifically applies to UK. Somebody who's trying to apply to UK for study as well as for work. For study, they have to check with the university whether they have to take a UKVI test or a regular LanguageCert academic test would work. So based on that, they can actually book the test. And in terms of immigration, it's always UKVI. So when it comes to a two-skill test as well, or the general, LanguageCert general test as well, it's always UKVI, the SELT examination, which is accepted by the UK Home Office for migration purposes. And as you rightly said, TestNest is already a authorized LanguageCert examination center, and you've also applied for a UKVI test center as well, which is in process.
Right.
So once we get the approval from Home Office, you will be able to deliver UKVI examinations. It can be academic, it can be general, and it can be the two-skill test as well. So all these three can be delivered in your test center once you get the approval from the Home Office.
So as we previously discussed, the long journey of getting all those accreditations and still it's pending in Home Office. So there's a lot of journey that one has to go through to get the test centers on board. How do you define or how do you say that it is very important to understand the credibility of the partner to give the center?
See, as you rightly said, Arun, the journey is slightly longer because we ensure that we look at every step. We look at every feature which has to be there, and whether it's compliant with the UK Home Office, it is compliant with the testing standard. So we don't, as I said earlier, we don't take security lightly. We are very serious in terms of security, compliance, and integrity, which is why we ensure that we look at everything before a test center is approved and they start testing. So this might, at time, this might take a little longer than usual, but once it is done, you are an authorized test center and you can kind of start delivering the tests.
How important is student support nowadays for whenever a student is booking for a test or when a coaching institute is promoting a test? How is the student experience different in LanguageCert compared to any other exams that domain?
Well, so far, whatever we've spoken with the existing candidates who have taken the test, they have had positive experiences, especially with the features of the test, especially, as I said, the listening test and the speaking test. So which kind of builds their confidence in the test. They feel that, okay, this is something which is closely related to them, and they're able to perform better because the confidence levels are higher and they are able to perform better. So I think this is the right test for them. It's just that they need to understand the test format, and they need to understand whether this test is recognized by the university or not. That's the main important step, as I keep saying again and again. That's the most important step. Once that is done, I think they can start preparing and they can approach TestNest, so where they can get all the support in terms of preparing for the test, taking a mock test, and then eventually booking for the actual LanguageCert academic test as well.
So this is for tutors, instructors, or consultancies who are right now in the market. How would introducing LanguageCert as one of the major product in their coaching help them to create a better ecosystem?
I think it certainly helps their students and themselves as well, because now there is another option. All this while they had those, few English language tests which were popular in the market, but now there's one more option for them, which is slightly simpler. And since it is simpler, it's more convenient for the candidates and it brings out the best of, of their performance. So they're able to score better in this as well. So now there's one more option for them. So, and again, as I said, it's not very different. As a test, it's not very different because it tests same components like listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So all the training institutions and consultants can easily adopt this, LanguageCert academic test. They can partner with us as registration centers, and they can start probably training the candidates on this, because we've been conducting a lot of trainer programs as well for the trainers to understand and embrace LanguageCert and add LanguageCert as part of their portfolio. So that is something that we've been doing continuously. We're doing every month, we're doing an online trainer program, and all major cities we are planning a face-to-face trainer program, at least one in a year.
Right.
So, for example, in Hyderabad as well, we would be planning something in the month of June, a face-to-face trainer program. So once a trainer attends this, they will understand it's not very different from other English language tests, and it's quite easy for them to adopt and start training on the LanguageCert. And similarly for the partners as well, now they have another option wherein they can actually help their candidates, especially somebody who's struggling with the regular English language test to get the required scores and all that. Since this test is simpler, I think it'll help the candidates get the required results and score, so they can introduce this and help their candidates in their study about journeys.
I would also address this fact that LanguageCert is not a new exam. So it is not something that is a new exam that has come to the market. It has been there since more than a decade.
Absolutely.
It has been widely accepted for people planning for a work permit to UK.
Correct.
And now it's a phase where we have got opportunity as a consultancy to be more partnered with LanguageCert, as it is now accepted in other countries like Australia, New Zealand,
Europe.
European countries. And the list is just going to go forward. So if we get the group right, there will be more opportunities or options that we can give to students.
Absolutely.
If somebody doesn't want to write XYZ exam, there's always this exam which is widely accepted, comparatively cheaper, and most importantly, it is more student friendly, and it's more student friendly. It's the curriculum is designed in a better way.
Correct. True. And you touched a very important point there. LanguageCert has been in existence for more than a decade. However, like in India, it was not marketed, before. There was a team which was formed in India, which is why a lot of people are not aware of that.
Right.
But we are trying to build on that. We are trying to build a lot of awareness about the test with various activities, online, offline, and various other training activities as well.
How important is it to build both trust and accessibility in a regional market like South India?
As I mentioned earlier, Arun, trust, integrity, and compliance are the most important factors of any test, which is why we get recognition. In fact, the recognition that we got from BOHA Australia, so that speaks a lot. There are certain tests which are still not accepted by Australia. So if we are getting an acceptance from a country like Australia, that actually speaks a lot, in terms of our compliance, in terms of the standards of our testing and the integrity. So all these things are, as I said, we take them very seriously. We ensure the test is done, with all compliance, in place. And we also, as I said, we choose our test centers very, selecting the right test centers for us, because we want somebody who wants to, who will kind of ensure the sanctity of the test is maintained.
Right.
So that's a very important factor for us.
So we addressed students, we addressed parents, we addressed consultancies. Now let's take it back, or let's zoom out to a wider picture. Let's understand future of English exams for India, because our geography is segregated in a way where we have metro cities, but I think 70 to 80% of Indian cities still has a lot of there's a need or a gap of exposure to English.
Absolutely.
Students are more convenient in their mother tongue. And how do you see the transition of English exams happening? So just to give you a context, while COVID, there were tests designed which students can write home based. Before that, different tests were accepted in different. Now there are more tests accepted in different countries. So how do you see this going for the next 2 years?
I think it's an ever evolving, industry, especially when it comes to the English language testing. As you know, there were tests being taken on pen and paper as well in the past.
Right.
But now things are changed. Everything is moving towards computer.
That is a very interesting
online
transition.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when initially when the computer delivered exams were introduced, I think only 10 or 20% were taking the computer delivered exams. But now it's the other way around. Almost 70 to 80% of them actually take it on the computer.
Yes.
And there are only one or two, or in fact, what I remember is only one test which is actually being provided on paper, and that too is being closed now. So everything is moving on to computer. So
Right.
that's an evolution in itself. And when it comes to the English language proficiency, for admission purposes, I think that's gonna be that's gonna stay, because if you look at the number of students going abroad year on year, that's only growing. The trend is only growing, barring the circumstances, what we have, the global situation right now, the war and all that. But if you look at the general trend, that number of students going abroad is only increasing year on year. So obviously, the need for the English language test is also there. The universities have a standard, have a level of score which is required, be it any language test. So that will always be there. And I'm sure, we will evolve with the needs of the students, needs of the universities. But English language testing is going to stay.
Are students expecting faster outcomes?
Yes, they would want faster results. They would want faster bookings, faster results, and convenient score reportings. So I think all of the test providers are actually working on all these aspects as well to ensure that they provide a better service to the candidates and the universities alike. So that it's more convenient for the students to kind of take the test and report the scores. And same is the case with the universities, wherein their requirements are laid, and then candidates take the test and get the results, and the scores are reported to them easily and conveniently.
If you were to have this conversation 1 year from now, how different do you see South India accepting language cert?
Well, over the past 1.5 years, since we started marketing in South India, we've done a lot of groundwork, Arun, right from identifying test centers, establishing test centers, marketing the product, promoting the test, doing train the trainer programs, partner events. So all of this basically including seminars and webinars for colleges and all those things. So it's basically spreading the awareness about the test, and we've come a long way. When we initially joined, like, a lot of people didn't knew about LanguageCert, but now I think almost all the consultants know about LanguageCert as a test. Even we are spreading that awareness in the students as well. A lot of students are also aware of it, that there is an option now. So I'm sure we have come a long way. And in the next, at the moment right now, we have 50 plus test centers all across India, which are live.
That's amazing.
And we are expecting that number to touch 100 by the end of this year. So the idea is to have a test center very near to the candidate, to have a test center in every city and every town, so that the candidates, they don't have to travel longer distances to take a test. So that's our goal, to have footprints all across the country and all across the region. And we're working towards that. And I'm sure, next year when we have this discussion, we will look at more test centers, we will look at more test takers taking the test, and more of recognition with language cert, and we'll definitely see a lot of positivity coming our way.
Let's get into a rapid fire segment. One word to describe today's language search suite. Smart. One common mistake students make before test day.
I think lack of preparation.
More important, confidence or preparation.
I think I've already answered this. Preparation comes first, and with that comes confidence.
One thing every parent should check before a student books a test.
I think recognition would be the first step, recognition, and then of course, there will be the test center and the study material and the resources. Yes.
One word for future of English in India. Here to stay. One line for the future of English in India. It's here to stay. So close it up. The final question. For a student or parent watching this podcast right now and still undecided of which test to take, what would be your final message for choosing the right English test and equally important, the right support system around it?
I would suggest all the parents, all the students to look for the test options that we have, especially check if the test is recognized by the universities and the countries. Once you shortlist that, once a test is decided, you can start preparing on the test well in advance, even before you kind of start your application. It's important that you put in that time and effort into preparing for the test, because once you do that, you get to know what is the score that you're getting. And if you needed to take another test, you always have time. And you can always approach, centers like TestNest, where they help you with the overall preparation of the test, identifying the right test, preparation of the test, and probably also help with the mock test, and eventually help you book for a language cert academic test, and then proceed with your study or job.
Thanks for the incredible podcast. And thank you again for joining us and giving such a good insight to parents, students, all the consultancies or agents who are in this industry. What stands out from this conversation is about choosing an English proficiency test is not just about selecting an exam randomly and going ahead. It is more about understanding what a test is, how the pattern is, what's the structure of it, where all it is accredited, where all it is useful, and how credible is the test.
Absolutely.
And language is one of the best exams that is possible to write in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Arun. And as Becky said by you, language cert is definitely the exam that all the students should take. But please do check the reputation first before you kind of opt for the test. And we are there to support you in terms of preparation, in terms of taking the mock test, and in terms of taking the actual examination as well. So please do reach out to us, and TestNest is there to support you as well, all through your journey. Thank you so much for having me, Arun. It was a pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much once again.
So for us as a TestNest, we want to build not just a center, but a trusted space where students feel guided, they feel prepared, and most importantly, they'll have the confidence. And the first question that we had, that students are scared. That's the main thing that you want to address. Come here, educate yourself, write the test in the same environment, be confident, and rock on. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.